Is part two of our case study of Bob and Jane YouTube and whether or not they can retire in 3 years. So remember, Bob is 55, Jane is 53, or 5 years. They want to retire in 5 years when Bob's 60 and Jane is 57. So Bob's 55 now. He just got a nice promotion, $80,000 a year. They want to retire at 60. Jane's 53 now, and she wants to retire at 57, so in 5 years or so. All right, so let's keep diving in. So initially, they had a 3% success rate, all right, just from the information they put in there. So unfortunately, they also double-dipped in terms of they said, oh, we're going to spend $5,000 a month in retirement, but that was all inclusive of everything. And what they did, unfortunately, is they included on top of that $5,000 a month their homeowners insurance and their property tax too. So we reduced that because that was all inclusive again. And so that made their retirement go from 3% to 9%. They also had their Social Security incorrect because Jane was on sabbatical. She went back to work again for Schwab or something like that, just because I'm familiar with Schwab offers a sabbatical. But she felt she should put her salary that she was getting in as only working part-time this year is $20,000 a year. And that was affecting their Social Security because they were using a simple Social Security benefit. And Bob's was incorrect a little bit too. So we adjusted that for correction by making them go to socialsecurity.gov and getting their list of their actual benefits. Because don't forget, with Social Security, it is indexed with inflation. And you take your top 35 years of earnings. Now, I'm not going to dive into this too much. But the facts are, if they were to say, what if we worked an extra 5 years, would they have done anything for Social Security? And the answer is not much. It's literally not much. And we can dive in that for you if you want, absolutely. But I'm just telling you, once you hit that 35 benchmark, all right, 35 years of consistent earnings. And again, this time we had them with $15,000 starting off their career, and for Jane, making an extra $1,000 a year. All right. And then we had Bob with $25,000, makes an extra $1,000 a year until they hit their age of retirement, which is 60 for Bob and 57 for Jane. So they all had 35 years of earnings, which is what their AIME is based on. Now, if Jane had not worked, or Bob, but just you give an example, my wife's stay-at-home mom, if she hadn't worked for a few years, 10 or 15, and she'd have a bunch of zeros in that 35 years of her average index monthly earnings, which is what Social Security is based on. In that case, it might make sense for her to continue to work for a few extra years if she wants. That could give her a little bit of a bump up in her Social Security. Still not going to be a huge amount, but every year she works, she's adding some level of income and getting rid of a zero in that 35 years of work. So again, just think about it. If you work 10 years, you're going to have 10 years of earnings in your Social Security. That will make you qualified for your 40 quarters. That means you're fully qualified for benefits on your own record. However, you're going to also have 25 goose eggs in there. All right. So if you work 10 years and you have 25 years of goose eggs, that's 35. And 35 is what Social Security is based on for your average index monthly earnings. So that's always what it's going to be. If you work 1 year, you're not going to get enough quarters to be fully qualified. And you're going to look at your Social Security benefits. It's going to say you have 34 goose eggs and 1 year of earnings. That's not going to look good. If you have 50 years of working and all similar, you're not making any extra money simply because you're not replacing a low earning year with a higher earning year. Because once you hit a certain threshold, i.e. 35, unless the beginning of your career was very, very minimal in terms of your income, you're not really helping yourself out. So in Bob's case, for him to work a couple extra years is not going to make any difference. I mean, again, a few bucks, but not much. Unless he had insignificant earnings on part of that 35 years, then it could make a little bit of a difference. But again, not that much. It's just not. It's weird how many people think if you work an extra 5 years, you're going to tear it up. All right. So let's keep diving into this. So now we've gone to, let me move myself. So again, now we're at 23%. So we started at 3, went to 9. Now we're at 23%. And so I said, okay, Bob, Jane, let's look at your cash flows. And again, this is when they retire at 60 and 57. All right. So the cash flows at retirement, they got no income coming in. So they have to pull from their accounts, and they're going to pull from their net flows. And so they need $70,000 a year of outflows, and they're going to pull it from their accounts. So, and there's all in 401ks. So there's all be taxable. So here are their accounts. You can see in their 401ks, they got $723,000 when they start pulling money from it. So let's look at withdrawals from accounts, and they're going to start pulling $74,000, $76,000, $80,000. You can see that until Social Security kicks in at 70 for Bob. It's all right. So it's still Social Security kicks in. As you can see right here, they're still pulling at 67 is when they're going to take Social Security. So the reductions from their accounts start going down from 87,000 in 2029 to 53,000 in 2030 until 6,000 in 2035 when they're both on Social Security. And you can see that's what's happening here. They're going to start withdrawing. So let's see what the account values are with all these withdrawals. And we're going to say ending balance. All right, so now we're 2034. They're 71 years old, and they still have 418,000 in their account, even though they were taking all withdrawals. And we keep going on until they're 89. That's when they basically run out of money under the linear rate of return. All right, so a couple of things. We're running a linear rate of return based on their current investment analysis, which is basically 52% in bonds and 48% in stocks, because they got half in the Ginnie Mae portfolio for Jane and half in the total stock index for Bob. So roughly a 50-50 portfolio. Now, what I'm using bonds give us 3% and stocks give us 7.5%. All right, that's gross of nominal rates of return. Inflation's at 3%. So if your bonds are giving you 3% and inflation's at 3%, half their portfolio is doing them no good, nothing at all, not making any money whatsoever. There's no growth in there because inflation is eating away the interest, but they're also going to have to pay tax. So half of the portfolio they have, in this case, Jane's side of it, is losing money once taxes start kicking in. Bob is getting 7.5%, so inflation's at 3%. His real return is 4.5%. So if you look at a total portfolio of 4.5%, plus, this is where it gets kind of scary. So you got 3 plus on the bonds plus 7.5 on the stocks. That's a 10.5% rate of return gross. Divide that by 2 because there's 2 portfolios. 5.25 is the overall return that they're getting. All right, 5.25. Subtract out inflation. That's a 2.25% real return. Oof, that's going to be tough to beat. All right, so that's the way we are. So now I say, but why do you guys have 50% bonds? And they say, because we've always heard once you hit, you take your 100, subtract your age, and that's how much you should have in bonds. So I said, well, let's do something. Let's try something differently. What if we just made your portfolio a more aggressive portfolio? We're not swinging for the fences here, but we're going to say, let's make it, instead of a current allocation, let's make it a growth strategy, basically 70-30. What will that do to the portfolio and your retirement accounts, your ability to retire? And now we're going up to 45%. So we've done nothing different other than make sure their expenses are correct and make sure their portfolios are correct in terms, because they're not sitting there scared. They know they got to get some growth, but they just always listen to the gurus about their current allocation, and it was way too conservative. So by not doing anything else, by making sure Social Security is correct, and by making sure that their portfolios align correctly, and by making sure their expenses are correct, we've gone from 3 to 45% in terms of their improvement of their retirement. How about if we do one other thing? I want to do optimal strategy, because right now their Social Security, they're just taking it at 67 for both of them. All right. And I just wonder, what if we take it at their optimal strategy, which would be 70 for both of them? What would happen then? So let's go back to our analysis here. And we're going to say, again, we're not changing anything, but let's just say Social Security optimal strategy. What will that do for our ability to maintain ourselves to retirement? And it goes up to 51%. So we've done nothing different here in terms of cash flow. All we've done is tweaked it for reality basis. So now we're saying, okay, if you guys invest a little bit more aggressively, defer Social Security to your 70, make sure your expenses are correct in terms of not double dipping for the cost, which is health, your homeowner's insurance, and also your property tax, and make sure your Social Security numbers are right. We've gone from a 3 to 51% success rate of your portfolio. However, let's look at the confidence, because I think this is actually quite important here. The confidence levels now, look at that. The median, you don't have 0 in your median ever. All right. Now doesn't make me, all that great. Oh, that's fantastic. But remember, we had median 0 at 73 before, and now we don't have a median to 0 ever. So 50% of the time you have money left in your accounts when you die. That is just a fact. Now, when we hit 72, our median is 192 in terms of our liquid net worth. This does not include our home. This is just our liquid net worth. And we haven't even talked about reverse mortgages, which we certainly should, but we're not going to here because we won't need to. I'll show you why. So in this case, 50% of the time at 72, they got over 192,000. 50% of the time they have less than 192,000. and their confidence range is still a little bit sketchy to me. I don't like seeing anything 20. I like having a higher than 25% confidence where you have money left. So by the time they're 72, there's a 25% chance or less that they have run out of money. That's still a little bit too high for me. I don't like that. So I said, well, let's go back to something else. We got your growth as your asset allocation as an optimal. So we're going to say 70-30. We got your optimal strategy on Social Security. I wonder, what if instead of taking $46.50, we just did, I don't know, $42.50? Let's reduce it by $400 a month. And there's a reason I say that, my friends. What would happen then? Let's take a look here. And if we just reduce, oh, look at that. It increases by reducing your expenses by less than $5,000 a year. It increases your probability of success above 75%, which is right in my wheelhouse. Let me show you why. And this is the issue that I think no financial planning software takes into consideration like it was. Here are their expenses. $60,000, adjust for inflation. $61,000, adjust for inflation. And you can see their expenses go up and up and up and each and every year. Now they're 80 years old. They're spending the exact same thing in inflation expenses as they were when they're 60. Does that make any sense? And on top of that, I'm only inflating Social Security at 2.6, all right, which is a historical rate of Social Security, but I am inflating expenses at 3 because I actually believe that's historical. So in this case, I'm doing a conservative asset allocation in terms of what their stocks versus bonds will be. I'm underestimating the potential for growth. And I want to do that to set the benchmark that the worst, I say worst case, but the conservative portfolio or conservative scenario looks like this. I'm inflating expenses more than I'm inflating Social Security. And I actually think that's legitimate to do. But here's the problem. Look at that. We're going to spend $139,000 when we're 88 years old compared to what we're spending today. And we're just going to adjust it each and every year with a 3% rate of inflation. And that still gives us a 77% likelihood of success. But the reality is, and this is what drives me crazy about the 4% rule and all these other things. The reality is that most people in reality do not spend that much as they age. They just don't, including factoring healthcare costs and including factoring long-term care. They don't. Now, could that happen? Sure. In fact, I'd argue that Bob and Jane need to get a long-term care insurance policy ASAP to prevent that long-term care issue. But remember, long-term care is different than healthcare costs. Healthcare costs are $200 a month for your Medicare Part B. If you want to get a Medicare Advantage, that's different. Long-term care costs, which is what the Susie Ormans of the world are scaring everybody to death on, are these phenomenal expenses that you could incur later on in your in life, in assisted living or skilled nursing care. The problem is there just isn't the basis that everybody needs to be staying at work until they're 70 to protect against those potential costs. It doesn't happen that much. Even a bad study, which I still disagree with, but says 15% of the people of retirees are going to spend over $250,000 in long-term care. 15%, not 50%. And the study that I like from EBRI, which is the Employee Benefits Research Institute, which uses real numbers. So that 15% one is projections on models. And if you know anything about models, you always got to take it with a grain of salt. EBRI did actual real numbers based on real people reporting their expenditures, and it wasn't anything near that. Now, it could, again, there are people that spend a lot. I know for a fact that is. I know them who do. But the likelihood of that happening to you is so small, certainly not worth risking staying at your crappy old job for an extra 15 years. It's crazy. And yet we're saying to everybody, you're going to need $280,000 in retirement just for healthcare, and that doesn't include long-term care. I mean, it's crazy talk. I don't get it. Yes, you could be struck by lightning. That is a fact. Thus, you better not go outside. It's the same scenario here. I don't get it, especially when you can simply buy a long-term care insurance policy. If that is your concern about the well in the future about your inability to pay for long-term care, caring, it's absurd. And so buy the policy, and then you have that table. You don't have that risk anymore because the insurance policy table. So it's crazy. So I don't think you're going to spend $4,000 or $5,000, whatever it is, a year, a month for the rest of your life, adjust each and every year inflation. I just don't believe it because we don't see the numbers out there. Again, there are people that are out there. They are the outliers. We don't base financial planning on the outliers. We base it on the commonality which is most people are going to spend less as they age. There's no other way around that. Now, why do most people spend less as they age? Well, certainly some because they ran out of money, absolutely. But most because they get older, they don't want to do the same stuff. They don't want to go to the Redskins games. They don't want to go to fly to New York City for New Year's Eve or something like that. So they spend less. That's just a fact. Now, will it be factual for you? I don't know. But this is what we talk about here. So just doing some basic stuff, we can improve the likelihood of your portfolio, of your ability to retire at 60 for Bob and Jane 5 years from now, from 3% to 77% without really doing a whole lot, without question, without changing much at all, just some basic tweaks. And now we haven't talked, there is something called a reverse mortgage. A lot of people, I don't want a reverse mortgage, that's a scam. They're wrong. Reverse mortgages are a wonderful opportunity for people who are going to be in their homes, who know how it works. I'll be happy to go over the preliminaries of that. I don't sell any of this stuff, but once you start adding these other things to the table, getting long-term care insurance policy, taking a reverse mortgage, maybe annuitizing some of your Vanguard accounts for a single premium income annuity, not a variable annuity. Don't like those. Certainly don't like index universal life insurance policies, but I do like income annuities. There's lots of different strategies we can do here. So that's all I want to share with you here today. I did want to show you what it looks like if you do some simple tweaks to your plan that Bob and Jane initially desponded that they weren't going to be able to retire at 60 like they wanted to. In fact, they thought they're going to have to stay another 10 years after that. And I showed them no. In fact, if we just do these basic tweaks, look, when Jane dies, she'll have $1.208 million in their accounts with just these little tweaks. Again, it goes to show you it's more than just running a basic Monte Carlo with a 4% projections. You got to look into it deeper. So if you like what you see, contact me because I can help you with this stuff. This is what I do. I want you to retire in happiness. I do not want you to retire in misery saying, I wish I could have, I would have, should have, could have. That's bad. Be happy. You're only on this earth one time. Make it last. Now, I don't know what that is for you, but for me, it's getting out of the shackles of the cubicle work and going to be freedom, doing what I want to do, what I love, when I wake up at 4:20 in the morning and say, I can't wait to do this. So my thoughts and prayers are with you. Blessings to you. Remember the parable of the talents. Even if you're not Christian, don't care. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. It'll tell you what you should do. To more whom is given, more is expected. And if you live in this country, you are given a lot. So we expect big things from you, my friends. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks now.